Yeah. Well, folks, hey, thank you for joining. It's 1:00 Central, so we've got a ton of content to cover here, but I'm really excited to be joined by Jeremy Reymer here from DriverReach. Jeremy is the founder and CEO of DriverReach. So really, we're going to get into a lot of the recruiting efforts and the current environment that we're in, and it's a tough market with the driver shortage. So with all that being said, Jeremy's going to cover a bunch of content, but if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please type those in the chat, and then we have time at the end of the session here to go through Q&A. So with that said, Jeremy, I'm going to pass it over to you, and we can get everything started.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation, and thank you all for joining. I know, first of all, when people say driver shortage, it can be a contentious statement, just because at the end of the day, there's no shortage. And I think the reality is there aren't enough drivers to meet the demand that all of us have, certainly not enough qualified drivers. And so from that perspective, I think it's with that premise in mind and the challenging environment that we're in. Over the past, 15, 20 years that I've been in the industry, almost 20 years. And the only time we didn't have this challenge was in 2008 and 2009. And on before and afterwards, it was the environment that we were dealing with. It was really hard, highly regulated industry. And it's in many ways a thankless job. And so from that perspective and through that lens, some of the things that I'm going to want to highlight are just how you can leverage technology to some degree, and how you can just be better and stand out, especially and thrive in what is otherwise a challenging environment. So just real quick about me, just because for time's sake, I don't want to spend too much time here. As I said, I've been in the industry close to 20 years. I owned a small truckload carrier for several years, as well as a driver staffing company for 15 years, and sold that because I was building technology to help me operate more efficiently. And I decided that it would be better for me to sell my staffing company and then use the proceeds from that to fund DriverReach, which is what I've done to date. So from that perspective, all I've done this whole time in the industry is recruit, qualify, and hire CDL drivers. And so the three areas that I want to focus on today are, kind of the most furthest upstream, right? Recruiting, advertising, marketing to drivers. And then focus on the importance of the applicant experience, and then end with simple technology to help, accomplish, all of the above. Let's see. All right, first step here, recruitment, advertising and marketing. So we need to attract driver applicants. So to do that effectively, you've got to really identify who you are, what are your strengths, what separates you from others? Is it better home time? Is it better equipment? Better safety culture, small family atmosphere, whatever that is, it's important to really narrow that down, hone your message, right? Because this is your brand. This is, you need to tell your story, and it's got to be on point, right? It's got to be accurate. It's got to be true, and then you got to share that message. But it's really important to try to, make that as succinct as possible and recognize what it is that that matters to the driver, to the type of driver that you're looking for, and then make sure that that is what you're communicating. And then in order to effectively share that message, you've got to have a modern web presence, right? You got to have a current mobile responsive website. Everybody is accessing your website or looking you up on a mobile device today. And it's also important to have a social media presence. If I guarantee you, if drivers are trying to find you and there's no web presence, or if it's not current, they're going to be skeptical, right? You're not going to seem legit. And trust me, they're looking you up beforehand. It's easier today to find info about you online, right? Glassdoor, Indeed reviews, whatever. So before they ever click, apply now. And again, your brand needs to be true. You have to be honest with yourself and what you're marketing. And there are a lot of options out there, whether it's agencies that you can work with, whether it's doing this on your own with a variety of different job boards, social media ads, and so on. Certainly some work better than others, but you need to experiment with all of them. That is what I would recommend. However, it's also important that you track their effectiveness, because you can't just, throw a bunch of money and hope for the best. So tracking allows you to measure what's working, what's not, and then reduce or eliminate or increase the spend. And by the way, if you're not leveraging technology there, it's really, really difficult to manage. And we can touch on that in a little bit. But let's assume you're doing all the right things, right? You're telling your story, you're sharing your message, you're tracking and optimizing your advertising to attract the right drivers. And you're really standing out amongst a sea of your competitors. What comes next is really important, and it all starts with the applicant experience. Better recruiting begins with a better applicant experience. It's critical to always consider your recruiting process from the driver's perspective. You know, what sort of experience are you providing for them? If you've got an application online, have you ever completed it? How easy is it, or how cumbersome is it? Because the goal of all that recruiting, all that marketing, advertising you're doing is to drive traffic to your site so you can collect their information, or so they'll contact you. As I shared earlier, mobile is a must, right? Nearly every driver has a smartphone today, and that's what they're using to visit you online. So if you're asking them to complete a form, whether that's a short form, a quick lead form, or a full DOT application, it really needs to be as simple and as easy as possible, especially from a mobile device. So, you know, when drivers visit your site, you know, another issue here is that how easy is it for them to see where to apply? It should be prominent, front and center. That's one of the main purposes of your site, or certainly if you have a separate landing page for drivers, it needs to be really front and center. Make sure that you're providing a good experience. Don't bury it under, you know, careers and a few other things that they have to go and search for. Got to make it easy. If a driver has to work too hard to complete your form, or even worse, if they're asked to download or print a PDF to complete, you're going to lose them. They're going to move on to someone else, you know, someone that makes it a lot easier. Now, the goal, right, is to get drivers into your funnel, right? So you want to make sure that it's mobile optimized, as simple as possible. And remember that each of these leads, they're valuable. They're a valuable asset, not to be wasted, not to be discounted. They're a CDL driver, that's presumed, right? If that's what they're providing with you, that information, and they're interested in working for you, right? So now that they're in your funnel, we paid to attract them to get us in the first, to get to you in the first place. Now we need to treat them as the valuable assets they are and communicate with them right away. So the applicant experience doesn't end, you know, once they express their interest. Now it transitions to the human interaction step. We've got to provide them with an impactful, positive experience as soon as we interact with them. This is a good opportunity for us, especially now as we're, you know, coming out of COVID, just to really bring humanity back to recruiting. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the best technology at your fingertips, but if you can't establish trust, build relationships, and, you know, manage that conversation, you're going to struggle. I've had the pleasure to work with companies who have some of the best technology, but when you call them and you try to engage with them, and you have that first kind of conversation, makes you feel so unimportant, or that person's too busy, you know, for you. That certainly doesn't make you feel good, doesn't make you feel welcome. And we certainly don't want to provide that sort of experience for a new applicant. It's really important to understand you want to stand out from anybody that's pushy, and you want to ask questions that lead to more natural, more impactful conversations and help solve for the problems or the challenges that driver has. There's a reason why you're talking. They're probably working somewhere, they're probably not happy, or they need a change or want to change. Uncover those things, pull that out, and have a dialogue with them. Build rapport, show empathy, and lead that conversation. It doesn't necessarily have to lead to them agreeing to continue the process or work for you, but at least your whole goal is to help them make a decision. A huge mistake I hear a lot from a lot of recruiters. They have a great conversation with a driver, and the driver calls in, maybe responding to an ad. They have a great conversation, and then they tell the driver, go to their website and complete the application. You got to make it easy. The frustrating part there is that they have this great conversation and they never end up getting that application because they didn't make it easy. They sent the driver to their website and they didn't fill out. They didn't make it easy. They just sent the driver on an errand. Right. So a couple of options, for example, there would be, hey, sounds like it's a great fit. I'm really excited to take this to the next step. So you got to fill out an application. Can I email it to you? Can I text it to you? Or if you've got, 5-10 minutes, can you just answer these questions and I'll fill it out for you, send it to you electronically. You can review it, sign it, and send it back. You just got to make it easy because they're the customer. And I'll overemphasize here, and you'll kind of catch this theme throughout. Recruiting is sales. That conversation that you're having is very similar to sales. And the reason why I'm showing this book here, Phil M. Jones is a famous sales coach, teacher from England, and he's spoke at a few events, trucking specific events, and I happened to meet him several times at those events, and he said to me, "You seem like somebody that everybody knows and is very engaged. What do you think about?" Because he has this book called Exactly What to Say, and it's a good sales book. And he says, "What do you think about doing something for recruiters?" And I said, "I love the way you think, because it doesn't exist, and I think this would be great." And so we set out middle to late 2019 and put together a version of his book, Exactly What to Say, for CDL driver recruiters. And so obviously on this show, I can't give you a book, but I will say my email address is on here. And if you shoot me an email with your physical address and your contact information, I'll mail you a complimentary copy. But the reason why it's valuable, I think, is it really helps to guide those conversations and making sure that you're helping them come to a decision, right? Whether one way or another, but it really helps to guide those conversations. And now, obviously the example I used before was when a driver calls in. Sometimes you get a lead or an application, and it's so critical to call that driver right away, right? From the moment you receive that lead or application, the clock is ticking. So I know you can't answer me, but what happens roughly half the time you call the driver applicant? It goes to voicemail, right? It happens, and that's another complaint I hear all the time. Drivers don't answer their phone, can't get a return call, and that absolutely is a challenge. And so kind of a pro tip that I've got here is we certainly can't be satisfied with just leaving a message for the applicant and hoping they call back. You can leave a voicemail, and you should leave a voicemail, but the reality is if you can do that every day for a week and they still might not call you back, and that's really frustrating. So we got to be a little bit smarter. And while you should certainly call and right away and leave a voicemail, you should immediately follow up, just basic CRM functionality. Follow up with a voicemail, that voicemail with a text. Hey, thanks for your interest. Just left you voicemail. What time today are you available to chat? And amazingly, that driver will respond within minutes or seconds. And then lo and behold, you connect that day and the process begins. So I think what's important here is that with both a call and a text, your odds of ending up connecting with that driver are dramatically improved. And the reality is, you're not, substituting technology for the human interaction. You're enhancing it, right? It's going to support it. It's going to ensure that it actually happens. And so at the end of the day, there's no guarantees, right? Like if you've received a complete DOT app and you've had great communication with the driver, you've performed all the necessary background checks, and the driver's qualified, right? There is still a decent chance you won't end up hiring that driver. And that's the part that can be really frustrating. Now, obviously, if all goes well, you invite the driver in for orientation, you end up hiring, and it's a win. But sadly, most of us are hiring, one or two at the most out of every 10 applicants. It's not uncommon that the remainder, either they get disqualified, they just go dark at some point during the process, and they seem to disappear off the face of the earth, which brings us to the next need for simple recruiting technology that can make a huge difference in your recruiting efforts, not only for your process, but also for the applicant experience. I'm going to start with CRM, the most, and I referenced it earlier. Again, recruiting is sales, right? The most effective salespeople use CRM all the time. When they're prospecting, they're managing their leads, through their sales process. There's no difference. Recruiters need to be using a CRM as well, especially if they expect to thrive in this environment. CRM is traditionally referred to as customer relationship management, but in the world of recruiting, it's candidate relationship management. And whether you have one recruiter or 100, you can use basic CRM tools to dramatically improve your rate of connection with those leads and manage those leads that you're reaching out to. And as I shared earlier, the leads and applications you get, they're valuable assets. You're excited about the ones you hire, but the ones you don't aren't chopped liver, right? They're still valuable. Now they're in your database. Using simple CRM technology, you can stay top of mind to them. You can establish a monthly newsletter that's sent to all the drivers that you don't hire, but still are, still appear to be prospects. You can send an email or text blast to drivers in certain areas that maybe you're specifically hiring for. This is your database. You've paid advertising or marketing dollars to get them in your funnel to begin with. So don't waste that. Keep an open dialogue with them electronically. With basic CRM functionality, you can send a variety of drip campaigns to any group of drivers in your database. And another thing I really like is just the fact that you can track who's opening your emails, right? Or who's clicking on a link in them. If you're monitoring that closely, you can use those clicks, right? That engagement as a sign of a potential warm lead. So that's an effective way to prioritize the best drivers to reach out to with an outbound phone call. Again, recruiting is sales. You'll be proactive. And by the way, when you use CRM, all these communications are tracked or recorded, better visibility into what's happening with each lead. You can create follow-up tasks and reminders so that no drivers slip through the cracks. And that's really important, staying on top of them and managing them through the process as efficiently as possible. And another huge advantage of incorporating CRM functionality is that as your database continues to grow, you'll be able to reduce some of your ongoing marketing spend, possibly, as you continue to remarket to your growing database. Now, efficiency gains along with the applicant experience don't end with the adoption of CRM, right? And an applicant tracking system also plays a critical role. And when you're getting those leads from drivers who complete your mobile-friendly form or application, ideally they're feeding into an applicant tracking system, an ATS, where you can manage them efficiently through the qualification process. As I mentioned earlier, you can use this technology to accurately track your various marketing efforts to determine what's working and what's not. Let's see here, hang with me. All right. So from within that ATS, you can perform all the necessary background checks, all the employment verifications, all in one system, and build that driver qualification file along the way, keeping everything together, all electronically. And an applicant tracking system that integrates with various job boards, background check providers, and so on, enables you to qualify drivers far faster and more efficient. The clicker here is a little bit slow. Let's see here, bear with me. There we go. All right, so if you combine that with CRM functionality and then you have great tools to maximize your communication and efficiency to dramatically improve your speed to hire. Now, while that's all stuff that DriverReach offers, that's not the point of me talking about this, right? The reality is that speed to hire is critical. We can't afford to lose drivers, those valuable assets, by not taking advantage of the simple tools available to us. And in many cases, you can reduce the time it takes to qualify and hire a driver from weeks to just days. So if you're struggling, if you're dealing with high driver abandon rates or a cumbersome experience for the driver, or using archaic tools and you feel like you're spinning your wheels, the opportunity there is there to thrive. Provide drivers with a better experience. Use simple technology to make sure your process is as streamlined and efficient as possible. And ultimately, let's face it, we know that when drivers are looking for a new job, they apply to at least a few different companies. So your ability to move faster and more efficiently using modern technology, modern recruiting, will make the difference between a driver working for you or for someone else. Now, I blasted through that presentation with the intent that we had 30 minutes tops, and I wanted to make sure that we had ample opportunity to get into some Q&A and just chat. And by the way, again, as a reminder, if you email me your address, I'll send you a complimentary book. And that's obviously for Nick and Kara as well.
That's great. No, I mean, love the, everything that you went through here, Jeremy. I just had a few questions, and folks, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you do have questions, we've got about 10 minutes now to go through Q&A. So feel free to type those in the chat, and we'll run through those questions. But Jeremy, so we talked about web presence in the beginning and how important that is to build the brand. What I find is a lot of people go to Google. So if I'm looking at working at XYZ trucking company, I'm going to go to Google, and then I might run into a Facebook page, or I see a Google page with reviews. And so my question is, how impactful are reviews in getting drivers to apply at XYZ trucking company? And if you do have negative reviews for whatever reason, what's the best way to really go about cleaning some of that stuff up to drive more of that activity in your experience?
Yeah, well, I love the question, because reviews, I mean, you say how impactful are reviews? I would ask you, how impactful are reviews? I think they're pretty damn impactful.
Yeah, right? they are. I mean, I base everything, like from where I eat to where I stay on the road, it's all based on reviews. Right.
You go to Amazon and there's some product that you want to buy, and you see there's 6 different types. You're looking at how many reviews are there and what's the average, stars or whatever. And so the point is, I think we're all acknowledging that reviews are really important. And so just as a part of your strategy, from a marketing and visibility strategy, it should be to get as many of those as you can, right? And you want to do it genuinely, right? You're not trying to pay people to give you good reviews and they don't mean it. So be better. That would be one thing I would suggest. Be better as a company and how you work with your employees. And then make sure that part of your strategy and approach is, let's get some reviews. Let's encourage our drivers to say good things about us if they mean it. And to the second part of your question was, how do you deal with the negative stuff? Because the answer isn't delete it. I think people, you're going to get that. I have people who we end up parting ways with just because it's just not a fit, right? And you certainly, wish them the best and move forward, but they're disgruntled sometimes, or they might, have some bad things to say, and I get it. So the best thing you can do is, how are you going to respond to that? Some people could not respond, and that is a type of response. Or you can say, and be empathetic and acknowledge how they feel, and you're sorry, and you wish them the best. And it's just, I think people will read that and say, okay, well, that's the type of company I can respect how they responded to that. There's always an opportunity. Yeah.
I think one of the worst things that people can do is not acknowledge what that review was. So, even if it was negative, it was positive, I think just responding to those reviews in a professional manner, that goes a long ways, because it really allows you to, one, and be thankful for, the folks that are, doing positive reviews, and you can, kind of brag on yourself a little bit. But then on the negative side of things, it's like, okay, what happened here, and here's what we're doing to improve. And, I think all that stuff can go a long ways. So we did have a question come in from Patrick here. It's more on the advertising side. But he wants to know, which performs better, job boards or direct job ads?
I think that the direct job ads, where you're getting people who they are directly coming to you, their intent is to come and work for you, your opportunity to convert them into a hired driver is significantly greater. And it's no different than in sales, right? If I get an inbound lead from a company who's like, went to my website and said, hey, I'm interested in a demo or whatever, there's they have a higher level of intent, right, of interest, than if I just was able to scrape a whole bunch of prospects' names and just start outreaching to them. I still might be lucky and get some drive or some, candidates or prospects. But the reality is, I think the intent is much more clear, more intentional when they're a direct application.
I think that's helpful. So, talking about, the applicant experience, and you mentioned bringing in the whole human element of things, Jeremy, and I think it was very easy for everybody to kind of detach from the human element through COVID. And now, we're starting to see, people are coming back into offices, and, people are just getting together, and we're bringing that human element, back in. So, I totally agree with you on how important that is. But so, along with that, what are the top things that you're hearing, from drivers that are looking, or what they're looking for in a company? So, I'm guessing culture is a big one, and that really plays into the human element. But, as you're talking with folks out there, what are the big drivers? Because I think it's helpful for the folks on the line to hear, like, hey, maybe we can be doing some things and promoting some things that we're not promoting today to help with those recruitment efforts.
Sometimes it's nothing, it's something you can't do anything about. They want to be home more. They want to be local. And if that's not your operation, you're in a pickle, right? There's just not a lot you can do about it. Even if you have the greatest culture and environment, and the money is the greatest. Sometimes that's just a reality. So let's put that aside, because there's not a lot you can do about that unless you're changing your business model and accommodating that, which, by the way, if you can, I would recommend it, mainly because I think it's 70 plus, or right around 70% of all the new jobs that were added to the industry since the beginning of COVID, since the beginning of 2020, 70% of them have been in the local, new jobs, new driver jobs added have been in that local sector. But that aside, it's about feeling appreciated and respect, not even the money. It's just about feeling like, hey, this company cares for me. They have my back, which we had a great opportunity during COVID to prove that, right? Whether that's doing everything we can to keep them safe, acknowledging the work that they're doing and how valuable and important it is, paying them more, and communicating with them regularly and getting feedback from them, and then doing something about that feedback that they provide. Those are all the things that when you're in a challenging position like that, and dealing with this global pandemic, right? It's never let a good crisis go to waste. What an opportunity you have to really solidify your people when they know that when push came to shove, you were protecting them, you took care of them, you cared about them. That matters.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. People at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we have emotions, and so there's a lot of things that go into it. But actually, working for somebody that shows that, hey, I care about you. I care about giving you a better work-life balance, or whatever that might be. All that stuff can go a long ways. So last question I have for you, Jeremy. You mentioned a lot of technology, and I know you guys have a platform that, we can drive a lot of this and, kind of ease the burden, from a recruiting standpoint. We do want folks, like, if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out directly to Jeremy, or, you can reach out to the folks at TBC, and we can get you in touch. So Kara, our director of marketing, is going to put it in the chat, the email address that you can reach out to at TBC, and then we can get you lined up with Jeremy and his team to learn more. But Jeremy, so when you look at people that start incorporating some of the things that you talked about, so let's look at somebody that doesn't, and what their close ratios are, because my brain goes to sales, right? So I don't know if it's the same terminology when you close an applicant, but I look at close ratios. So once you start incorporating some of the things that you talked about, what is the typical change that you see from a close ratio standpoint?
Well, you probably weren't even tracking it before. You know what I mean? If you were operating in paper and spreadsheets, you're probably not taking the necessary steps to even track conversion rates. But I think, obviously being able to manage and see number of applicants that are coming in versus number of applicants that become hired, that become either a full application that become hired, conversions like that, or hires, or as you would say, closing. Again, depending on where you're getting those leads from, you can see some pretty significant close rates. But the challenge is you're still struggling with qualifying them, right? Let's assume the communication, and I've worked out every inefficiency in the process. Still, at the end of the day, if you've got 3 tickets in the last couple of years and that doesn't meet my hiring criteria, I can't hire you. But what I can do, leveraging technology, is say, hey, this last ticket here is going to fall off in October. Or this oldest ticket is going to fall off in October. I'm going to create a follow-up task. I'm going to reach out to you and see where you're at, how you're doing then, and if there's still an opportunity there, we can pick things back up. And so that's where, again, those leads are a valuable asset. They're a CDL driver interested in working for you. Can we make it work?
Yeah, and we all know, drivers, a lot of times they're not staying if they're not happy. they have plenty of opportunity to jump over to the next company. And so, just because they didn't go with you today doesn't mean 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road that there's not another opportunity there. So I think, to your point, tracking all that in a database, and and I'm guessing you can set up alerts in notifications where hey, I should call this guy on this day, where it notifies your team to reach out and actively recruit. And it's about being proactive versus reactive in a lot of these situations, which I think goes a long ways.
Right.
So now that's all great stuff. I mean, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions, Jeremy. So I want to thank you again for for being our guest on our monthly webinar. Fantastic information. And as I mentioned, so we've got Jeremy's contact information here. We will be sending out a copy of the presentation as well as the recording. So you guys can check back in there. But Jeremy's email and contact info is right here. And then you can also contact the folks at TBC if you want to get in touch with Jeremy and team to learn a little bit more about DriverReach. So with that, Jeremy, I don't have anything else for you. Really appreciate you jumping on, and thanks to the folks that joined us here. Everybody have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. See you.